Hi, I'm Allison McKeen. I'm an artist and printmaker in Gardner, Maine. Today I'm going to show you how to block print like a pro. I've always enjoyed making things. I've always been an artist in some way or another. Around 2015 or so, something in my brain was like, I want to try printmaking. And I took a couple of classes and that's what kind of kicked it off. Block printing is a type of printmaking where you carve a stamp or a block and then essentially use your hands to then print it onto a surface. So if you want to get into block printing, most craft stores will have some really good beginner level tools, and honestly a lot of the stuff that I use is technically beginner level. They're just reliable tools, but they can also be affordable and they're at most craft stores. So there's an interchangeable carving tool. This kind of screws out and then the other bits are actually stored up inside of it. So it's several different bits in one. I have a set where I just have individuals that are different shapes and sizes. And then this pink rubber, again, this is something that you can find at most craft stores. They will come in this sheet and you will just carve your shapes right out of that. I like to just make a bunch of different individual shapes. I love to create compositions of lots of shapes existing next to each other, or it could be used as a pattern if I just want to stamp it over and over again by itself. Last year I started getting into food illustrations a lot, and then last week I did a few new ones. So these are my current favorites because they're brand new. I've only used them once, and I'm gonna carve this one today and that'll probably be my new favorite. So today I'm going to print this percolator coffee pot, and I think it's gonna work well with the other shapes, or it could be good as a pattern by itself. I drew directly onto the rubber, and just be mindful of the fact that when you then stamp it down, it's going to be reversed. For example, if I had text written out here, that text when I stamp it is going to be backwards. So that is something crucial to remember. After I have drawn my image onto the block, the first thing I would do is get a larger gouge carving tool and then carve out the outline. It is important, I would say, to start more simply and then go in with details later, because you can't undo the carving. So do less to start with, then go in and finesse later on. First of all, I would say it's good to carve away from yourself so you don't slip and hurt yourself or hurt your block. I usually will carve, and then as I am carving, kind of rotate it. It's easy to think that you need more pressure than you really do. You have this desire to dig all the way in and kind of point it down, but do not do that. You kind of want the carving tool almost parallel with your table. So you're just kind of gliding along, but also, of course, carving. Kind of glide for a bit and then push up the end, and then it will kind of push the rubber up for you. So anything that you carve away is going to be negative space on your print. So I'm carving a line here, these sections that I left behind, that's all gonna be the printed solid area. So as you're carving away, you get this really delicious texture, and that is something that can be fun to leave behind, and you get a little bit of that printed texture on your final result, or really carve it away to create a clean negative area. So I'm just about done carving it, but I did leave a little bit of space around the edges. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of extra space, because then you can kind of hold that with your hands as you stamp it, and then you're not interfering with the inked up block too much. So now that we have it all carved up, we are ready to roll ink onto it and start printing. So I got this t-shirt from a thrift store, and that's what I'm gonna print my new design onto today. Cotton and linen are probably my favorite things to print on. They usually just give you a nice crisp image. So it is important to have a completely flat surface without much texture to it. This is a nice smooth table. It's also pretty sturdy because I'm going to be applying a lot of actual pressure to it. So you don't want like a wobbly table. Sometimes the ink will saturate through whatever you're printing on. So like in this instance, I don't want it to go through to the other side of the t-shirt, so I'm putting this cut up grocery bag inside of it just to be safe. Better safe than sorry. Okay. So I'm squeezing out my ink that I'm going to use onto this nice thick glass pane. It's really easy to clean afterwards. So now I'm just going to start mixing these. I think this is actually going to come out kind of like an olive green color. So the ink that I used today is a special fabric block printing ink. Again, that's something that is in most craft stores. It will say fabric ink on the tube, and that is what you want. This is a brayer. It's used for rolling ink. You just dip it in, and then I start back here and do a roll like this, do a few of them, then go the other way, and then you end up with kind of like a long rectangle shaped area of rolled out ink. There's like a texture to it, and you do want that. There's a sound that accompanies it that is kind of like sizzling bacon. And actually, let me show you what too much ink looks like. If you've rolled it out and it's looking kind of gloppy like this. And there's also a little bit of friction when you're rolling. That's too much ink. So I'm just gonna kind of roll off the extra here. And go back to this side, and this is the correct, proper amount of ink. So for me, this is like one of the most magical moments because you kind of see your image for the first time. You can also see if there's any areas that you want to change, like maybe carve away. I'm feeling pretty happy with it, so I think I'm gonna leave it. So as you're inking, you'll probably go back and put more ink onto the brayer and put several coats, so to speak, onto the stamp. You'll know when there's enough ink on it because the texture of the ink on the surface of the stamp will kind of have a similar texture to the ink that you've rolled out onto your plate. Also, a good way to find out is like literally just to test it. So I'm just gonna go for it, and it might turn out, it might not, and that's just part of the process. So I'm just doing a light tap here. And for fabric printing, you do want quite a bit of pressure. So I'm actually kind of leaning my body weight onto it, and I'm going across the whole surface evenly. And then you might go around with your finger and kind of get the edges just to make sure that you got everything. And then you can kind of peel up a corner and see how it's looking. So this looks good. I'm just gonna keep pulling it up from here. And as I'm doing that, I'm gonna hold down the surface of the fabric with my other hand. And there we go. Okay, so from here, I'm going to integrate some of my other shapes that I've already carved. I think I want a combination of like other food shapes and maybe just some fun like abstract shapes. All right, so it's done and I'm feeling pretty happy with it. This ink will be dry to the touch in 24 hours, and then after a week I can then launder it. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it here so that it can dry undisturbed. And then to wash up my blocks, I usually will just use dish soap and then maybe like a bristly, like a hard paintbrush to kind of like lightly scrub it off. And then to clean up my plate, I have a razor scraper and then just like a rag to wipe off the extra. Thank you so much for block printing with me today. I hope that you had fun and maybe learned something, and we'll see you next time.